Welcome everyone to the B.O.S. podcast. That's the Business Owner Success Show, that show that represents servant leadership, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, encouragement, positive impact within the community, game changers, love, and anyone who takes courageous action to make things happen. I'm Jason Delumpa, your host, and ladies and gentlemen, success is the name of the game. Have you ever wondered what separates the wildly successful from the rest, the mediocre from the best, and those who pass with flying colors and those who fail the test? Well, today, we're about to find out. Today, we welcome our special guest who's rubbed shoulders with the most successful and the best in the business world. Not to mention, he's also highly successful in his own right and changing the game. And I'm so excited today because we'll get to hear his experiences, insights, and stories on what success is all about. So let's dive right in. Brian K. Wright is a writing coach, radio host, and magazine publisher who helps people share their message with the world and help monetize their expertise. With extensive experience as a college instructor, Brian has created and implemented strategies to help people craft their stories. His best-selling book series, Success Profiles, Conversations with High Achievers 1 and 2, has featured celebrities such as Kevin Harrington, Chris Powell, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Sharon Letcher, Dennis Waitley, and many more. He has been featured on The List, Entrepreneur, Authority Magazine, and numerous podcasts. So without further ado, please help me welcome to the show, the brilliant Mr. Brian K. Wright.
Jason, thanks for having me here. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Welcome to the podcast, and I'm thrilled that you could be here sharing with all of us today.
Yeah.
Brian, in your own words, can you let the audience know who Brian K. Wright is, what you represent, and how do you show up and serve the world?
Big question. So I do a number of things in the marketplace. I host my own internet radio show. It's live radio every week, every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on the TogiNet Radio Network. And so it's on at the same time every week. I've been doing it for over 12 years, since January 2012. I've had over 550 episodes of my show. I also produce and publish Ultimate Achievers magazine, which I've been doing since December 2017. I help people write their books, whether I'm coaching them or whether I do it for them. And I also have produced magazines for other people in the past. So I keep my hands in a lot of cookie jars. Life is never boring. And I help people get their message out to the world in a much bigger way, because I think everyone has something to say, but not everyone realizes it.
Awesome. So you help get their stories out in the world where before they met you, they never thought about it, or maybe they never thought that it could happen for them. Wonderful. Can you let the audience know, how was your childhood like?
I grew up in Iowa in a small farming community. In fact, I live here now. I moved back here from Arizona a couple of years ago to be closer to my mom after my dad passed back in 2021. It's peaceful. Life is a lot slower here than in a big city like Phoenix, which is where I was for the last 26 years previously. Uh, I always wanted to be a writer or a teacher or do something on the radio, and I've been fortunate enough to have done all three of them in my life. And so I think I've gotten to do what I really wanted to do with my life. It hasn't always unfolded in the way that I thought it would, but that's what makes life such a wonderful journey and such a great puzzle. So, gosh, when I was a kid, I would write stories based on TV shows that I was watching as a kid, whether it was Lost in Space, whether it was cartoons or whatever. And so after I was done with homework in elementary school, I would write. When I went to church with my parents, if I fidgeted around too much, mom would hand me a notebook. Most kids would doodle or scribble. I would write. So I've always been creative in some way, shape, or form. I did music. I was in band, I was in jazz band, I was in choir. So I was a singer. So I've always been an artist or a creative of some kind. And that gives me a lot of joy, being able to express who I am and helping others to express themselves who maybe don't feel quite as adept at doing that. So I'm the voice behind theirs that helps them get their message out.
Wonderful. Now, were you an only child?
No, I have a younger sister.
Awesome. Now you have numerous books. I counted nine. I don't know if that's accurate,
This
but
is number 10, just came out 3 weeks ago.
yeah, I love that book. The greatest lessons I learned from my coach.
Yeah, you've been
Uh,
reading it, haven't you?
I've been reading it. I did leave a review, and you talk about hiring the right coach.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, what would you say are the one or two books that hold extra significance for you?
One of my favorite books is Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles,
Mhm.
How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to
Oh,
Be.
yes.
And in 2005, when that book came out, I read that book probably 2.5 times all the way through. It's the only book I read all year long, and it was very impactful and life-changing. In fact, when he had his 10-year anniversary of that book in 2015, he was on my show.
Oh, wow.
So I got to
Awesome.
interview him.
Yeah.
I also really like The Aladdin Factor by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. It's about the power of asking for what you want. And I've had Mark Victor Hansen on my show too.
Mm.
So I interviewed them separately, but they were both brilliant. And I just have such huge respect for both of them. So those are two books that I have felt really impacted by. I have pivoted to Audible in the last maybe 6 or 9 months. And I try to listen to Audible for at least 30 minutes every day. Sometimes it's an hour or more
Hmm.
when I'm in a book that I really like. In fact, I'll go back and re-listen to some books more than once. Grant Cardone's 10X Mentor, I've listened to a couple of different times. Oh gosh, what else am I listening to? I just started Scott Duffy's book called Breakthrough. He's got such an easy voice to listen to. In fact, I was on a Zoom call with him a couple days ago, and we were just catching up on some things. And I asked him, "Are your books on Audible?" He says, "I think they should be." And so, based on the books that you listen to, Audible will sometimes offer you opportunities to add books to your library for free that are related to the books you've already listened to. And so I got to download Breakthrough for free. And so I listened to that for about an hour yesterday. Really fantastic.
Awesome. Do you have a preference whether to read a book or listen to it? Does it make a difference for you?
Lately, I've really enjoyed listening, and I
Mhm.
will take notes on a Word document.
Oh, nice.
Whereas if I'm reading, which I used to do quite a bit more often before the Audible thing became a thing, I would take a pencil and I would just write bracket things that were very meaningful and maybe write a couple keywords or whatever so that if I wanted to just breeze through a book, I would just go to all the sections that I've made notes on and just read those pages.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like when I read a book, I mark it and go back to it and study it and apply it, right? It's learning what you get from that book and also applying it. It's
Yeah.
what makes the difference. Now, in one of your books, Brian, you credit your parents for being great examples and still doing the right thing. Is that correct?
hmm Yeah, I did a book called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Dad and another one called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Mom. And I did the dad book after he passed. It was about 6 months after that where I had thought about doing a book, but I wasn't ready yet. I needed to grieve and heal and whatever that was, whatever that looked like. And about 6 months later, I finally decided, okay, I think I'm ready to start. But then I thought maybe other people have lessons that they'd like to share about their dads too. And so I put it out there in my Facebook, Authorpreneur Live, and you can join the group for free, by the way, Authorpreneur Live on Facebook. And as soon as I had 100 people in the group, I made the offer, do you want to be in this book and chip in a little bit to help defray the cost of putting it together? And I had 28 people raise their hands and chip in. So I was really amazed at the response. And that went so well that I decided I should do a mom book too. And the difference being my mom is here to enjoy it.
Wonderful. Now, in your latest book, The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Coach, one thing I learned is why hiring the right coach could help change your life. In fact, I have multiple coaches in my life, and it's absolute game changers. I still have a coach that I hired from a decade ago. But in the beginning, for me at least, it was their belief in me before I believed in myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brian, who is someone who is that right coach for you?
I would have to say a really good friend of mine named Chris White. I've worked with him for a while. In fact, I hired him in the middle of 2022, I believe. And in my first 12 months of working with him, so on a rolling 12 months, I finally exceeded six figures for the very first time. That was a very exciting moment for both of us.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And in my book, I talk about reasons why you should hire a coach. Shortening your learning curve is certainly one of those things because if you're hiring the right coach, then that person ideally has done the things that you want to do. And
Absolutely.
if it's scaling a business, that person hopefully will be much further down the road. Now, you don't want to play the comparison game. This person's further ahead of me. Oh, that must mean they're just better than I am. Well, no, that means they just figured something out before you did. That's all it means. And so
Right.
he figured those things out before I did. Another thing that I have benefited from is his connection, his connections, his network.
Mm.
He's referred me to people that can help me with the things that he doesn't know quite as much about. He has referred clients to me. So that's part of why my income quantum leaped forward is because he referred clients to me. And of course, I fed him a referral fee. Do the right thing and pay someone for their connections. I know a lot of people who want your connections, but aren't willing to, they don't want to do it never occurs to them to give a referral fee. And I don't usually ask for one. I just want to see if someone's willing to do it. And there are a couple of people in my life who have done that, and that is a thing for them, and that's why they're successful.
Wonderful. Now, do you believe the thoughts we think, words we use, stories we tell ourselves could take a mediocre achiever to a high achiever or even an overachiever?
Absolutely, because the story you tell yourself is the story that you start believing if you say it to yourself over and over again. You could tell yourself a lie over and over again, and you can actually start to believe it's true.
Mm.
I'm not trying to get political or anything like that. A lot of politicians will tell the same lie over and over again, hoping that enough people will believe it that they'll just accept it as truth.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Was there a time in your life where you had to change your thinking, change your thoughts throughout your career?
Yeah, I think so because Chris was one of the very first people that poured into my life, even way before I hired him. But he kept telling me, it's your time. And I wasn't owning that. I wasn't receiving it and owning it.
Mm.
But basically, he saw something in me that I didn't see for myself. And I finally had to really start to believe that I was worthy of all the things that I wanted to achieve in my life. And I started believing it and then started attracting the right people in my life to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it attracted opportunities, which again attracted me to other people that I didn't know. And so my network has grown because,
Yes.
first of all, I finally started to believe that I deserved an opportunity to prove that I could do what I wanted to do. And I just honestly think that we're all created with gifts, and it's a slap in the face to not try to recognize what they are and use them for the betterment of all people around you.
Powerful. Now, can you describe the day when you decide to become a writing coach and why?
That's a really great question. I think it's something that evolved over time. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of writing when I was a kid. And then I ended up teaching at a 2-year business college when I lived in Nebraska. I did that for about 5 years. I taught public speaking, business math, and English composition. And that's where you learn to write papers. And English Comp 2, which I got to teach once, was an extension of that where you learned to write a research paper. So you worked on the same project for the entire 6-week term. And so I had to break it down so that people could make their progress. And toward the end of the term, everyone presented their papers. And I said, you will be responsible for answering questions about your work because you've been looking at this for 6 weeks. So you should be the expert on this topic.
Hmm.
So we had some really spirited conversations. One girl did her paper about the JFK assassination conspiracy theories that were running around. That generated a lot of
Wow.
discussion. But then years later, I wrote my first book in 2009, the student leadership book. And several years
Right.
after that, I had the epiphany that if I can write books for myself and if I taught English comp in college, why can't I coach people to write their own book? And
Mm.
then that eventually pivoted into I write books for people who don't have time, don't want to, or don't think they're great writers in their own right.
Nice. Has your experience as a college instructor helped you as a coach, or are they the same?
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I sometimes channel that era of my life when I coach people because whether you're writing a paper, whether you're writing a book, topic first. What is your topic? Who's your audience? That's even probably even more important.
Mm.
Who do you want to talk to? Because I've talked with clients who say, I have ideas for more than one book. One is a book for a general audience, and one is more of a niche book for my audience, to my business audience, to build my business. And I would then ask, which audience do you want to talk to first? I think I want to talk to the general audience first. I said, well, then that's the book we're doing first, and we can do your other book later. And he loved
Right.
the idea.
Now, you also help people with ghostwriting. Is that correct?
Yeah, I will write books for people. So
Okay.
we'll figure all that out. We'll figure out what their stories are. We'll figure out what the outline is. We'll do recorded interviews on Zoom, and where yeah, just basically we do a data dump. Everything that a reader might want to know about their topic, I'll ask them to share their stories, and then I start writing based on the interviews that we've done.
Is that obviously it's a good thing, but is it viewed in a negative light,
Shouldn't
ghostwriting?
be. Now, as a
Mhm.
ghostwriter, by definition, I'm anonymous.
Mhm.
Now, if you look at entertainers, politicians, a
Mhm.
lot of them don't write their own books. They work with a ghostwriter.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow,
Yeah. In
interesting.
fact, uh, Jack Canfield's Success Principles book is with Janet Schweitzer. That's a byline underneath his own name on the front cover. So whether she added extra content or whether she was his ghostwriter, I don't know. Jack's a good writer, but she worked with him in some capacity as the silent voice behind the book.
So it's
And
like a kind of assisting.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And now some people don't want the world to know that they used a ghostwriter, and
Mhm.
that's why I don't insist on my name being on the book. I've done 10 of my own books, but I have worked on many more.
Yeah.
Think of me as a session musician in the music industry. Toto is
Mhm.
one of my favorite bands. All of those guys are supremely talented musicians. They
Yeah.
have appeared on literally thousands of other people's albums, in addition to the albums they did as Toto.
Toto.
Yeah. Hmm.
Gotta love them. In addition to being an author, book writer, coach, and radio host, you're a magazine publisher for the Ultimate Achievers magazine.
Yeah.
Where can viewers and listeners get a copy or subscribe?
They can go to ultimateachieversmagazine.com and subscribe. It is a digital magazine. So you get the first 7 days for $1, and then you can pick which subscription option that you want. And you can read any issue in the portal. And we're working on issue, I believe, number 71 right now. So if you read
Wow.
one issue a week, it would take you longer than a year to consume all the content on that site.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Now, how do you view your work that you do, Brian? Do you see it as a calling?
I do. I
Mhm.
do. I think if something is meant to be, the path will be pretty simple. I didn't say easy, I said simple.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you try to force something and it's really hard, maybe that's not the right door that you should be opening. But if you're open to receiving whatever the correct door is, circumstances will eventually align themselves and you'll feel like, where has this been my whole life?
Wow. So it's like a feeling.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, your circumstances, I think, will definitely
Yeah.
unfold in a way that it should be obvious. Now, I sometimes I tend to be a little hard-headed. I may not always see what I'm supposed to be doing. So the way I see it is God closes all of the doors except for one.
Wow.
That's how hard-headed I
Yeah.
sometimes am. It's okay, this is the right one.
This is
Okay, thanks.
yeah. I had that same feeling the other day, but I know what you mean. Now, Success Profiles Radio, what led you or inspired you to start it?
It's interesting. I read a book once, I think it was called Conversations with Millionaires by Mike Littman and Jason Ullman.
Hmm.
And Mike Littman interviewed Mark Victor Hansen, Jim Rohn before he passed, and a whole bunch of other people. And it was basically about their journeys and how they succeeded and what they've learned. And I decided, you know what? I'd like to do a show like that someday.
Yeah.
And the opportunity came up. Now, I didn't get to interview those types of people immediately. I had to build up to it. And so I got some great practice, if you will. If I went to go back to listen to some of my first episodes, they probably aren't as good as the ones I'm doing now,
Yeah.
but it's been an evolution
Hmm.
and I'm a lot better at what I do now than I was then. And eventually I started getting people's attention. People started referring guests to me. And then I started getting the attention of PR companies who wanted to pitch their shows, their guests to me. And now I'd say probably 90% of the people who are on my show are people who are pitched to me by someone in my network.
Awesome. Now, over the last 11 years, you've
Mhm.
interviewed world-class achievers such as Darren Hardy, Jack Canfield, Laurel Langmeyer, Kevin Harrington, Sharon Letcher, and many more. What was that experience like? Do you have any stories or insights you'd like to share?
Yeah, for all the success that all of those people have, they put their pants on the same way I do.
Hmm.
They're not any more special than I am.
Mm-hmm.
They just achieved something worthy that I haven't gotten to yet. Or they may be doing things that I aspire to.
Yeah.
Now, I will say some of those people, I was fanboy. And it was hard for me not to gush all over them. I don't do that quite so much anymore because, again, they're a person just like I am. But I do highly appreciate the people who have said yes to me. And we've
Yes.
had a brilliant show. And those are some of my favorite episodes.
Awesome. Wonderful. Any guests you would love to have on your show, dead or alive?
Elton John would be fascinating.
Elton John?
Yeah, he's my favorite musical artist. He's my
Yeah.
favorite musician. He would be a hoot and a half.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any artists on your show?
I had Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees on my show one time.
Oh, wow.
He was fun.
I
He was,
gotta
yeah.
listen. Yeah, I gotta listen. Now, through your own experience, Brian, what do you think separates the highly successful people and those who don't even try, or those who quit too early?
The people who succeeded didn't quit. And that's the difference. They chose not to
Mm,
give up. When something
right.
gets hard, that doesn't mean stop. It just might mean go around. It might mean try a different way. It might mean not now,
Right.
or it might be maybe the thing that you really want in spirit manifests itself differently in the outside world.
I guess,
So I
yeah.
think God knows what you really want. You just,
Yeah.
and I think, I honestly believe that God has laid out what you are equipped to do. And it's up to
Hmm.
us to want to find that out. And if you seek him, you'll find him. So
Wonderful.
just don't ever give up and be open to whatever your divine plan is. I think sometimes we cling so hard to the things that we want.
Hmm.
Think about this. Have you seen the meme where this little child has a little teddy bear in their hands
Hmm.
and Jesus is on his knee in front of them with a giant teddy bear behind him? And the child is saying, I don't want to give this up. And Jesus is saying, I have something better for you.
Wow.
It's like that.
Having faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking that next step, even though you can't see it.
Hmm.
Wow. Now, I love this quote by Napoleon Hill. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit.
Hmm.
What is one thing you've learned as a result from interviewing highly successful, high-profile people, and how can that help our listeners looking to get to that next level of their business?
Directly relating to that quote, when people experience a knockdown or a rock bottom moment, they don't think of quitting. They think, I am no longer willing to put up with this. It's like they've drawn a line in the sand
Hmm.
and decided there's got to be something better than this. I am worth more than this in life. I have talents. I just need an opportunity. And sometimes someone will give them that opportunity and they run with it. And they realize, oh, this is what I was meant to do with my life.
Yeah.
So they use that as a springboard. Even the most successful people in the world, they've all gone through bankruptcies and divorces and short sales and
Yeah.
foreclosures. Just a lot of the rest of the world have. The difference is they got up. It's like the Chinese proverb, get knocked down 7 times, get up eight.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That's, I guess you fail your way to success.
Absolutely.
You just
And
don't
failure
ever
isn't
quit.
failure. It's a lesson. It's an opportunity to learn.
Yes. Can you share a moment in your life or career where you were afraid and still took action anyway?
Oh gosh, probably a lot of things. I think there have been times where I've had some massive financial difficulties. And I think in the light of that, you think, gosh, I'm interviewing all these amazing and successful people. And then I'm tempted to think, how come I haven't been able to translate that to my own success?
Mm,
But my journey is different than the people who I've been interviewing. I think when you are in that pit, that financial pit of what do I do now? It's just an opportunity to expand your thinking and ask yourself, how can I do this? Not
Hmm.
can I get out of this, but how can I get out of this? Who can I serve? Who can I help? Who can I love on? And how can I serve the marketplace in a way that maybe I haven't done before? Maybe there are things connected to what you're currently doing in the marketplace that you can add on.
It's that reminds me of Les Brown when in his the beginning of his career he was sleeping, I guess, in the building and he was doing conferences or speaking to people, but he was broke.
Mhm.
And I love what you shared. It's who can I love on? Who can I help? I guess having an impact or creating an impact really has nothing to do with your income, right? Because
No, it
yeah.
doesn't. Mother Teresa wasn't
Mm,
rich by the world standards, but she would
hmm.
argue that her riches were in the relationships that she built and developed
Oh, I love it.
and with the people
Awesome.
that she was able to help in her lifetime.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a quote saying, success is not what you achieve in life, rather, it's who you become in the process. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. If your goal is to be a millionaire, it's not about having $1 million because that can be fleeting and that can disappear anytime. But it's the person that you become in the process of doing that, because if it's taken away from you, it means that you can do it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you feel like you've arrived?
I will never feel like that because there's always something else. Even if
Wow.
I don't want to say famous because I don't like that word,
Hmm.
but if I become visible to millions of people at a time, I will always feel like I'm just a guy who found his dream and I'm doing it. There's no reason why other people can't do it too, because I can learn from anyone, no matter what station in life they're in. So no, I will
Awesome.
never feel the idea of feeling like you've arrived
Hmm.
implies that you've reached the mountaintop and that you're there and things can never get better. Ask yourself, how can it get better than this? Not can it get better, but how can it get better than this? This is amazing. I'm
Yes,
looking for something even greater than this. I love and appreciate where I am, but how can it get better than this? I never want to settle.
absolutely. Yeah, you're always growing in life, right? If you're intentional about it. So you never stop growing. There's always another level. Speaking of another level, what's next for Brian K. Wright in 2024 and 2025?
Some things I can't talk about yet because they're still in the works,
Yes.
but I will say on a very general level, it should involve me becoming a lot more visible in the marketplace.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I want to start a second magazine with a completely
Ooh,
different purpose than my first one, reaching a completely different audience. And if and when I'm able to scale it to the level that I want to, I would love to be able to sell it and have a nice exit at some point in the future.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how do you challenge yourself and step out of your comfort zone?
I do it by listening to audible books from people who've achieved the bigger things in life. It starts with opening up the can and allowing those thoughts to come to you. It's allowing yourself to think more expansively. It's allowing you to listen to stories of people who have done the things that you hope to do someday. And then just start thinking about, how can I apply this lesson?
Absolutely. Now, do you do any speaking engagements or
I
speaking
do.
events?
I've done some speaking. I've done a lot of virtual speaking. I've sometimes spoken on stages. That's something I'd like to do a lot more of. But I can talk about success. I can talk about book writing. I can talk about creating and repurposing content. I can talk about some of the great lessons I've learned from some of the people that I've had on my show. And I think that's an awesome keynote all by itself. I've given that a few times.
Wonderful. Now, Brian, what's been your best compliment?
My best compliment,
Yes.
you changed my life. Something you created changed my life and it's impacted me.
Mm.
That's my reason. That's my reason.
Wow.
Even if I sell only 30 copies of this latest book, I know you're one of them. I know you're being impacted by it. It was totally worth it.
Wow. Wow. Awesome.
But I've sold more than 30 copies, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Biggest failure. What did you learn from it?
let's reframe that as greatest learning moment.
Yes.
Greatest learning moment. I learned resilience. There was a point in my life where in the last economic downturn, I was having a problem affording my home. And so I
Mhm.
started renting it out as an Airbnb. And instead of paying rent somewhere else, which would have completely defeated the purpose of renting out my home, I slept in my car for a while.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Did
You learn to
you
be resilient. And I didn't
resilient?
have a laptop then. I had a desktop, and you can't carry that around.
Yeah.
And so, in order to build my business, I was at the mercy of when the public library was open.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're resourceful.
You have to learn to be resourceful.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Absolutely.
Wow. Knowing that things are only temporary.
Yeah. And it was temporary. That's no longer my situation,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Awesome. Now, if you could sum it up, Brian, what's your secret to success? Do you have one?
My secret is think big, figure out what you are destined to do, and then take action.
Hmm. Love it. Now, as we're wrapping up, how do you want to leave a legacy?
I want to leave people in a space that is better than where I found them. Legacy is one of my core values, and that's how I define it. People define legacy differently, but
Hmm.
for me, legacy means I left someone in a better space than I found them.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Now, where can listeners find you online?
My show is on Apple Podcasts. It's called Success Profiles Radio. It's also on Spotify, and you can even listen to it on Amazon, and you can listen to it for free.
Wonderful. Now, any last words worth sharing?
You are here for a reason. Your job is to figure out what that is and make a difference and make an impact, and don't give up when things get hard. And probably I will pass along one piece of advice that someone passed along with me at the end of one of my shows very early on. Have at least one conversation every day with someone who inspires you. And Jason, thanks for being that for me today so far.
Thank you so much, Brian. I greatly appreciate you. It's been awesome to have you. Audience, please reach out to Brian K. Wright if you have any questions or if you just want to connect or if you want to write your own books. Brian, we love you. And ladies and gents, this concludes our boss segment. Take care, God bless, and have an impactful day. Thank you so much.